Welcome to my channel. This video is for a custom mini mum. This video will be start to finish. I'll be showing the entire build of the mum, including the loop chain. If you haven't done so, please subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell for notifications on my uploads, live streams, and premieres. To start off, I'm going to do the loop chain, and you may recognize this. I did do a separate video for this loop chain, but I wanted to include everything in this tutorial so the whole thing would be start to finish. I believe I even did the backer on another video, so don't be surprised if some of it looks familiar. But again, I wanted to do an entire video because a lot of times I just do parts of the mum making process in videos, but so I want to start doing some that are more start to finish, like the entire thing or most of the thing, and then also offer all those videos where it's just a loop chain or just a backer. So for people that, some people want to see the entire build, some people want to see certain parts of it. So I want to try to include for everybody. So this is just a fun little double loop chain. It's very easy to make. That back ribbon is a 1.3 inch, which is also the 1 5/16 inch. And then I'm using the 7/8 acetate to make the loops. And you just want to put those two loops together so it makes a point, and then you only have to use one staple. And then you will have to cover up the staples unless you don't mind that, but I usually cover that up with some kind of bling, rhinestone, something, just to it adds some sparkle, but then it also covers up those staples. So this was a red, white, and blue mum. The blue was navy. And now you can also separate these loops more or less. You can put them up against each other, butt them up against each other, the whole chain, or you can really spread them out. So you get a different look depending on how you attach those two loops together. How close together you attach them. So it's just, think of an upside down V or almost even a heart, what you're making. Again, it's very, very easy to make. And you could do one solid color going all the way up, or you could do multiple colors like I'm doing. It just depends on what you're going for. If you're going to use these to put stickers on, names or something, you have to think about that, what colors you're using, whether or not you're doing sparkly ribbons. This looks really pretty too if you use glitter ribbons. This chain does, so if you want to do some fun loop chain on a mum for a girl and you want it to be sparkly, this is a really good one to do by using sparkly ribbons. So you can see I'm using this pretty glitter ribbon. And you can double these up. You could put the glitter on the inside and outside, or you could put the acetate on the inside. It just depends on what look you're going for, and you can really change this up and have a lot of fun with this chain. I really love this chain. Because every time I do it, I change it up a little bit and give it some unique look. Again, there I'm doing just a touch of glitter right there in the center, but her name is only 4 letters long, so I only needed 4 loops for her name. And actually, when I made the loop chain, I wasn't really sure where on the mum I was going to put her name, but I ended up using it, putting it on the loop chain, which you will see later. I do actually show attaching the vinyl on this mum as well, different techniques I use for attaching vinyl on the mum. So here we're going to move on to the backer, and I'm using about a 4.75 inch backer, or this is a ribbon spool end. I like to recycle those and use those as backers. They make great backers. They're the right texture of chipboard. They're thick, but not too thick like cardboard. The ribbons here I've got cut at 3 inches long because I want to do like ribbon spikes. And then the ones for loops are going to be 5 inches long, but for some reason I didn't show the entire, or I didn't get the entire backer videoed, so I don't know. Like I said, it was last summer, so I don't remember what happened. There could have been any kind of issue. There's always something going on when you're recording stuff. Something always happens, so I apologize for that. Here I'm taking a smaller spool of ribbon. I'm just going to draw a circle on this backer to give me a guide on where to attach my ribbon spikes and loops and stuff. I'm using a 2.5 inch width, and the 1.3 inch, or it's also the 1 5/16 inch. Then just cutting a V shape or a dovetail, and then using that circle that I drew on there as a guide on where to attach it. I'm attaching 4 of these, so I'll do it at north, south, east, and west. Try to get them as even as possible. And you want to cut these together. You see I'm cutting the V shape together. That way that V shape or that dovetail matches up on both ribbons. And then I slide that blue one down just a hair so you can see the white underneath it. It almost looks gray or silver on the video, but I'm pretty sure that was white. And I'm just showing there where the points of the ribbon match up to that circle I drew. So I always do the north one first, and then the south one, and then I go east and west. Just very quickly show you these. And then I do loops, and then I do the deco mesh tubing, little swirls, which none of that is anything that I haven't shown before, so you can watch that on some other videos. And here I'm using, again, the 2.5 inch width, and I always cut these ribbons about 2 inches longer than what I need to start with, or what I need for the length of the braids and ribbon streamers. That way you have enough ribbon to attach it to the backer. And what I'm doing is just putting that loop chain on there, making sure that I'm attaching that first ribbon streamer long enough for that chain. And I'm starting out with the wide white ribbon. That's the 2.5 inch. That's probably the luster ribbon. I try to buy the 2.5 in luster because it's it's an economy ribbon. But the colors, as long as you do the same brand, the colors will match up. You know, the texture of it is a little bit different than acetate, but it is less expensive. It works just as well. The white is actually really bright white. It's a very, very, very vivid, if you want to say that for white, but it's a very bright white, even more so than the acetate. So I actually prefer it. I just started using this last season because I've used floor ribbons, I've used polypropylene ribbons, which are cheaper, but I found that the luster is a much bright white, very, very white. So it works really well on the mums. And you can see I get just a little bit shorter each ribbon streamer that I go. So I cut them at a certain length, and then I just gradually make them a little bit shorter. That's just for the look I go for. Usually I really like that look where it just gradually gets shorter the wider the mum gets. But you can do them however you want. You can do your ribbon streamers all one length. It's just whatever look you're going for. And I'm using the 1.3 inch, which is also the 1 5/16, which is also known as number 9. And I also, on these 3 mums, I did not do the ribbon streamers identical, like the color pattern, how I attached the red and the navy. I changed them. They all were a little bit different. So if you want to look at those, I actually have pictures at the end of this video. I'll show pictures of all of them, of this mum finished, and then you'll also see a picture of all 3 of them. So you will get to see that. And when you're doing the white, a lot of times when you're layering a white on top of a color, you can see that it's, I think you can see that where the red is bleeding through on the bottom. So sometimes you're going to want to double up those white ribbons if you really want that white to show up nice and crisp and white. I'm not done. I'm going to put another color on there, so you're not going to see that much of the white. So I didn't think it was that big of a deal. Plus, with only doing one layer, when I double up a ribbon like that, it does show when you hold it up. You can see those 2 ribbons come apart. So it does look, to me, it looks kind of funny. So it just depends on what's more important to you on the look. You see, I'm covering up most of that white. I'm only showing a little sliver of that white, so I didn't think it was real important to double those up. But sometimes I did. I tried it both ways this year. And you are more than welcome to do multiple layers of ribbons on your mini mums or whatever size mums you're doing, but on these mini mums I like to do one layer. It's just something I came up with a few years ago. Somebody was looking for a small mum for their young child, inexpensive, and I think it was like last minute, and I came up with this design. I believe it was for a peewee mum too, and it just ended up being so cute, and so I started offering them, and that's just how it came about. Now for the leg garters, I usually cut these in half, and I find the seam and cut it in half at the seam, because you don't want the seam where they're going to wear it, because that can be uncomfortable. I'm just going to glue it on there on each side. And the reason why I cut it and glue it on like this is to make the garter as big as possible, because if they're going to wear it on their leg, on their thigh, it's, you know, probably their thigh is going to be bigger than what an arm would be. In most cases, not always. Could be, you know, these girls could be really, really tiny, and that's something you might want to know up front so you don't make it so big. But most time you just kind of have to go with your gut. And then I always staple too. I want them to be very, very secure. And if these happen to stretch out, if it's something they were wearing more than once, you could kind of pinch it together and hot glue it or sew it. I would prefer to sew it together, but hot glue would work too in a pinch. So here's a little cowbell, and this is just some thin ribbon here. I think it's like a little rope ribbon, if I remember right. This is some ribbon that I find at Christmas time at Hobby Lobby. And here's some thin soft satin ribbon. You can find that at just about any store that sells ribbon. You may not be able to find it in the color you want, but they do. That's a really common ribbon. It's the soft satin, really, really thin soft satin. That's good to attach trinkets with as well. And then I just put a little bit of hot glue on there too, just for security, because sometimes even after stapling it, they can pull out real easily. So I like to add some hot glue where the staple is just to secure it. Then I put my backer on. I always hold it up there and see, okay, is this where I want it? Does it look straight? Does it look good? And then I put a couple of staples in the top just to hold it in place. If you only do one staple, the backer can still move around. I found that out the hard way. So 2 staples works perfectly. 2 staples side by side, and it just holds it right where you want it. And then I start gluing it down. Just add some hot glue and push that down. You want to press those tightly together. You don't want any gaps between your backers. You want them as tight together as possible. And then get in all those gaps. There's always going to be some little gaps, so just get in there as best you can. That hot glue gun had a tip that was like a fine tip, which I loved, but it didn't last very long. It just all of a sudden one day pushed out. You know, I was pumping the hot glue and it just pushed out of there. And trying to change the nozzle on a hot glue gun that you've used a bunch of times is not fun at all, let me tell you that. But I did go through, I think, 2 of those with that fine tip, and it did the same thing on both times. So I wouldn't recommend buying that hot glue gun just for that, because it doesn't last. It was like maybe 6 months out of it I got, and like I said, it just pushed out, and I went through 2 of those fine tip nozzles, and both of them did that, so I quit. I gave up. But it was nice when you're trying to use, you know, just a little bit of hot glue, a fine line of hot glue. You don't want it like gushing out. It worked great for that, but not worth the hassle. So now we're going to put the flower in. I've already got the chenille stem secured in there. I do have separate videos for that if you don't know how to do that. I like to have that done ahead of time so you don't have to worry about that drying, because I do hot glue that chenille stem in there. You want it to be dried before you attach your flower to your mum. Now, I always put some hot glue under the flower to the backer, just because you know, I mean, it's going to help it stay in place and help you keep it secure, but it also covers up all that inside mess of the backer that you don't want seen. Now I always staple the chenille stem to the backer as well. I want my flower to be nice and secure to the mum. I don't want to take any chances that it's going to get pulled out or fall out or anything like that. And you just want to cut that off, and then I just fold it over the little, there's a little piece hanging over, so I just fold that over, and then you can hot glue that as well, just to make sure. Like I said, I want to make sure that sucker's in there good. And I'm just covering up that little hole. I just cut off a little piece of ribbon, cover up that hole, and then I'm going to add a clean backer. Because with that big hole, you could still see some of the mess in there, so that's why I did that. I just want it to look clean and nice. Press that down really well. And you see I start at one end of the backer and then I do the other end of the backer. And it oozed out a little bit. If you use too much, it'll ooze out. You don't want that. You'll end up with a big mess. So just do a little bit at a time. Then you can go in any little gaps in there. You can kind of squeeze some in there if you need to. That was the good thing with that fine tip nozzle as well, as it, you know, those little gaps, it would get in there really well. But like I said, it didn't work as good as I hoped and didn't last, so it wasn't worth it. Now I'm going to make sure I get in all under the mum flower as well. I'm going to get that nice and glued down really well, because there's still some spaces. Go all the way around it, lift up those petals. You know, if the wind blows or something, it'll move those petals over, and you don't want them to see any of that stuff behind there. Just be careful when you're gluing all that down. You don't want to accidentally glue a loop or something down. That has happened to me as well. You get carried away stapling or gluing, and you don't realize that something got pushed down in there. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm checking these little swirls that I made, make sure they're not too covered up before it all dries. Kind of pulling them out a little bit to make sure you can still see them. Now I'm going to attach the custom cutout that I made. I used this design on several mums this year. It was really popular. So it's just the grad cap and with the year in it. But I did it a couple of different ways. On this one I cut the 2022 out of the grad cap. So whatever color you put in on the background shows through for the 2022. But I also did it where I just attached the 2022 in a separate color on top. And that is actually easier, because when you cut out something like this out of the design, you know, you've got the zero that has the little zero in the center, or the little center thing, that you have to be sure and save and then glue that in there as well. So you have to think about that. So here I'm going to start attaching some of the vinyl stickers. And this is just the school name or the town. And this is how I attach these when I do them one by one, and I do them in this vertical way up and down the ribbons. This is how I attach them. I do them one letter at a time, and it can be a little time consuming, and You know, you've got to be a little bit of a perfectionist to get them on there. I don't do them perfect, but I try to get them as straight and even as I can. The W's and the M's are the worst. And you can see that. You can see I'm having problems with it. Vinyl is not something that when you hold it up that it's stiff. It wants to curl around. So when you've got like a W or an M, it really wants to curl in on itself, and it can be really difficult to attach those. Now you can attach them where the letters are facing sideways, and then use like transfer tape or scotch tape or something to, not scotch tape, but masking tape to attach them to the ribbons. And I do that too. A lot of times just for like homecoming and the year, I'll do that method. But for like the names and the school or the town, I like to do it like this. Like I said, it's a little bit more time consuming, but that's part of what they're paying for. Part of the look that I've got, and that's just, you know, what they're buying. And it doesn't bother me to do all those stickers. Again, that's the look for of the mum that I do. You know, I just do one chain in the center, one chain or braid, but then I do all these stickers, these custom stickers for them, and I usually do more than one font. So you do 2 or 3 fonts, and then, you know, I size the words per their mum, so it's a lot of work just for these stickers, just for these vinyl stickers, but the outcome is really, really cute, so I'm happy to do it. And so think about that if you're wanting to do a lot of vinyl on your mum, if you have a vinyl cutter, that this can be time consuming, and if you are selling your mums, think about the time that you're putting in if you're going to be doing something like this. You know, people will charge more if they've got several braids and chains because those things are time consuming. Well, things like this are time consuming too. If you're doing a lot of custom cutouts, that's time consuming. That's a lot of work. So you really need to charge for that work. And the vinyl I'm using there is a silver vinyl, but it's not like a glitter vinyl. It's just kind of a gunmetal metallic. It's the only way I can think to describe it. I use it a lot on guys' mums too. And I actually got that vinyl from Sign Warehouse. That's some of the first vinyl I bought. I bought huge rolls of a bunch of different colors. It's permanent vinyl. I got the gold and the silver. And that vinyl has been really, really good. It's lasted me a long time. It is expensive, especially if you're buying a bunch of colors, but it has lasted me years. I did finally run out of white, and I ran out, I think I'm close to running out of black. I can't remember, but the white I ran out of first, of course. And then I like to do like little cheerleaders and things like that too. If they're playing sports, I like to do sports balls, so you can see the little cheerleaders on there. But I'm going to show more of the vinyl as well. I don't usually show that much of the vinyl, attaching the vinyl. I've showed it before, but I usually just cut that part out because it's so time consuming. It can really take up a lot of time on the videos, but I have had some requests for that, so I wanted to show some different techniques, all the different techniques that I use. These little cute basketball stickers. I think these are from Hobby Lobby. But I always use some hot glue when I attach any of these like scrapbooking stickers to a mum. I always do a dab of hot glue just to help secure it on there and make sure that it'll stay on there better. Hot glue is still not 100%. Stuff still falls off mums. It's just, it happens. Especially with little embellishments. I believe I had some little basketballs cut out. And those are kind of a pain because you have to pull out each little section of the basketball. But they were cute. I did a football, that's what it was. But I did finally cut some basketballs. I don't know if I had them done at this time or not. So now I'm doing her name, and I did her name in a very delicate font. So these little delicate fonts are not only difficult to cut, especially when it's small, but they're very difficult to attach. You see all that curl? So I wasn't about to try to lift that up and attach it like I did the redwood. That's why I'm using the masking tape. I'm doing each letter, since each letter is going on a loop. And I always de-sticky the masking tape first. I always put it on my shirt or my jeans or something 2 or 3 times so it's not as sticky. Or it's sticky enough to lift up that letter, but not where it's going to permanently hold that letter and you're never going to get it off there. And then carefully, see, it's really delicate and it's difficult to get on there. And this is part of the process I said, you know, that takes time when I'm doing stuff like this, doing these little delicate letters on there. And when you're doing it on a loop, it's hard because you can't really put pressure on it. So I have to put my finger under there and then rub it and try to get it to stay on there. It wasn't very much fun. That's why I don't do this type of stuff very often. It's just one of those learning experiences. You do stuff like this and you're like, okay, this took way too long. It was a really pretty font though. But a chunkier font is much easier to attach. And then the L was too wide for the loop. I had to cut off the very end of the L, just where it sticks out there. Just had to trim that off. It wasn't a big deal. Now here's the senior. I did the senior 2022. I did that last year too for senior 2021. It's very popular. People really want that. And I'm just using an end of a paintbrush there to help me. And then the number still came off and I had to put them back on there. You have to put them back on there perfectly. But it's really popular. Again, I'm using Scotch tape because it's just easier for me on letters and short words like that. It's easier just to grab a piece of Scotch tape. But of course, de-sticky it first. And that's the easiest way to attach it onto a mum. You're just putting it on the ribbon, pressing down, pulling that off. It's much, much easier. But I can't do that for every one of my words and stuff because I would have everything on there sideways and I don't want that. Plus, you can see the red, I think it was Red Hawks, how I did each letter kind of catty corner. So here's the bows. I already had the bows made, and I do have a lot of videos showing how to make bows. If you want to see that, that was just a sheer or organza ribbon with a little bell in the center, a really tiny bell. I'm just going to glue that onto the ribbon. I'm kind of waiting a few seconds to let that hot glue cool down just slightly so it doesn't scorch the ribbon. Some of those ribbons can kind of curl or something or shrink up a little bit if you add hot glue to them, so you got to be careful. And that bow I made for all 3 of them, and I do have a tutorial on how to make those bows right there. So I'll try to put a card up for that too. Again, I'm just gluing that down. You could staple it too. You see, just a cute little bow like that just really makes the mum. I mean, it was kind of a focal point for the mum. That's a little basketball button. I get those at Hobby Lobby. Just cut off that back, that little button part, so it's flat, or as flat as you can make it, and just hot glue it on. But you can also use, sometimes on some bows that I'm wrapping in chenille stems, I'll keep that button on the back and I'll run that chenille stem through the button and then use it to secure the center of your bow. But that kind of bow doesn't do that. See how cute all that vinyl is. Now I'm going to add some bling. It needs a little bit of bling, a little bit more. You can see I added some covering up all those staples. I'm just going to add a little bit more on the mum. Just adding, a piece on the end of the ribbons. Just another little touch. Now right there, what I did was the glue between those 2 pieces, you can see it right there. The glue kind of oozed out just a little bit, and I couldn't get it off there, so just covered it up with a piece of bling. No big deal. And here it is finished. See how super cute that was? I was so proud of these mums. I thought they were so, so cute. And there's all three of them. So you can see they're all very similar, but they all kind of unique too. So they each have their own uniqueness. Okay guys, that's it. I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was informative. Please subscribe. Don't forget to tap the bell. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, comment. Please be kind with your comments. Please be kind to others. And as always, happy mum making and happy crafting, everyone.